Hi there, it's Charlie Ratcliff here, aka Trout. Part of the TMAC group, and we're on the ground here, Kirstenbosch Botanical Gardens, one of the most iconic places in the world, certainly if you're a photographer. And that's really our topic today. We're going to be addressing what to bring, settings, etc. To help me with that, we're going to be joined by a good friend of mine and professional photographer, David Rogers. He's no doubt here somewhere, so let's go and find him.
Hey there, Charlie.
Right, David. So good to see you, man. Long time.
Social distancing, right?
Social distancing. We got that squared away.
Yeah.
We just want to cover a few topics on the photographic side, and I thought we'd start a little bit with the sort of the furniture of it, the different terms, etc.
Okay.
You know, people hear about DSLR, they hear about mirrorless, crop sensors, etc. For first timers who are coming out on safari. Can you just give us a sort of a description of the sort of cameras and equipment that's out there?
Yeah, exactly. Sure, I think that photographers would be most familiar with the DSLR, which is a digital single lens reflex camera, where you look through the eyepiece and it looks off a mirror and you get your view through the lens. And what you see is what you get, and that's how it always worked. Now we've got mirrorless, which is an electronic viewfinder that's giving us a live view of what we look at. And both cameras have their advantages and disadvantages, but I think mirrorless is catching up fast, and probably 5 years time that's where we'll all be. It's all evolving very quickly. If you ask me what lens should I get now, I would say go down to your photo store, chat to them what you're doing, look at the options, decide what feels right for you. You've got to carry that camera around in the back of the vehicle on the field, make it around. Don't get yourself a massive lens if you're not particularly strong, or you're going to hate that. I mean, I've seen a lot of people miss a shot because they've got a huge lens which is going to give them wonderful clarity and wonderful results, but in fact they're not going to be able to get it onto that subject before it flies by.
Yeah.
As a person that's out in the field often, and sometimes with other people in the vehicle, I like to keep my equipment very simple. Tried a 60 to 600 Sigma on a recent trip.
Yes.
And it was astounding. It was so liberating. I enjoyed my photography so much.
Yeah.
I was able to do all sorts of things with that lens and get fantastic results.
And Dave, just sort of another thing that often we get asked, and as guides we think we know it all, but we don't, and certainly from the technical perspective, what sort of camera settings should people be looking at from a wildlife perspective?
You know, Charlie, I would say get off auto mode quickly. Auto mode is not a great place to be for wildlife because too many things happen. Flashes pop up, it changes things that you don't want it to change. And also you want to be able to override your exposures. So I would say that photographers should either be shooting in aperture priority and with a shutter speed that is fast enough to capture the action, and we are going to be able to change our aperture and the shutter speed will change. But I would say if you're shooting with a different lens, it's a wide angle lens, you can get away with a much slower shutter speed. You can get away with a 50th of a second. But for a fast moving hummingbird, you're going to need 1/3000th of a second or more. Okay, and that's where your ISO comes in. So you kick up your ISO to do that. You know, your aperture is really going to affect your depth of field of what's in focus. You want that nice blurry background, you go to a nice wide aperture. Okay, so what a lot of photographers are doing now is shooting in manual, which is unusual, and using auto ISO, and then setting the maximum ISO to maybe 5,000, 6,000. And what that'll allow you to do, you'll be able to use your two creative modes, which are aperture and shutter speed, independently, and your ISO will take care of the rest. So if you're then photographing a fast moving animal and it runs into shade, and you've told it 2,000th of a second, it will bump up the ISO when it goes into the shade. It'll keep you on that setting, okay, to the point, and that's pretty useful. But then you also need to, a very important thing to work out is the exposure compensation. That little plus minus button on your camera, You've got to learn how that works, because that overrides the camera computer. You're getting a picture and you're photographing a dark bird, a tree with a bright sky behind it, you need to increase your exposure time. And your camera needs to be told to do that. So you're either going to use a spot meter, or you're going to go what we call exposure compensation plus 2 or 3. Experiment with your cameras and you'll get the feel of it, and you'll see you'll be able to darken or brighten your picture.
And don't forget, of course, to bring it back to zero afterwards for your next photograph.
Exactly, Charlie, you know what that's happening.
I've been there, done that.
Yeah, for sure. But it's, the cameras are powerful tools, and you've just got to get familiar with the the settings, because essentially this is a paintbrush. You want to be able to create your art using that and not think too much heavily about technical stuff while you go.
Yeah.
You want to get familiar with that before you come on safari. That's what I would suggest. Do an online course, or do something, or chat to Charlie, chat to somebody. You could chat to me as well, Charlie. It's something we do, is just online.
Yeah.
Sharpen up your skills before your safari. And then, very importantly to mention, Charlie, is that once you've taken your photographs, how you deal with it. You're going to shoot your picture in RAW format. That's very important to mention. RAW is like you wouldn't put a piece of fillet in the microwave, okay? You're going to take your picture raw and then you're going to cook it slowly on your computer. Don't let the camera do it. If you shoot in JPEG, it throws away information that you might need later. A RAW picture has got a dynamic range that you might find useful later for pulling out details out of your shadows and for pulling down your highlights. So it's like the old darkroom. So Lightroom is the program we use for that. It's a modern day darkroom, and the ability to be able to do post-production is amazing. You will be astounded at what you can achieve in changing things, but understanding how that works is an important part of your process, and I would also do that before you go on safari too.
In terms of vehicle size and numbers, etc., because you got a lot of equipment, etc. What in your scenario is the sort of the ideal numbers if you're on a vehicle and you've got a group of photographers?
I think the ideal would be for everybody to have a row. That you can shoot left and right and have your camera bag next to you. But it's not always practical, and often people want to be in a bigger group. And I would say the minimum requirement is everybody gets a window seat. So you can have everybody on the edge with the vehicles, and you've got to just work it. But generally, if you are driving with a guide, you will generally put the serious shooters on one side of the vehicle, that they're all on that side, and your guide will then know to position the vehicle accordingly so that you've got the best view from that side of the vehicle. But then you've got the elevation, and the back seat has a different view to the lower seats. And I mean, for me, we were talking about photography. I mean, the crucial thing is to just change your perspective. It's not just about taking a picture of Charlie. No, it's about what's behind you. What's the flowers, what's the foreground. And similarly with an animal, you're going to position yourself in a way that you don't have a tree growing out of the cheetah's ear or something like that. You want to
been there, done that,
and your foreground's got to be right. So different. I like the low angle, high level on just about anything, whether it's a bird or an animal. The lower you can get, the better. Shooting elephant's toenails on a hide is fantastic, and you can get a wide lens and get the animal against the sky. What you're creating is contrast and definition, so you're seeing that picture very clearly. So the camera is a visual tool. We need to use it as such. Getting down low, we can get eye level with the animal. You can see the eyes, and that's terrific. So your position in the vehicle is important.
You've obviously read the questions I was going to ask you, because clearly you've taken away my next question, which a little bit on the techniques and stuff. So I think we squared away on that one.
That's nice, man.
Top 5 destinations. If you're a serious photographer, and I know this is a little bit, it's like which is your favorite child, but
I know it's very difficult. I've got a particular love for Zambia. I've done a lot of work there, a lot of books there. South Luangwa National Park for me brings together landscapes and animals in a way that few places do for me. I absolutely love it. I love the people. I love the feeling of it. So I love rivers. So I would then go, well, Lower Zambezi is also fantastic with the escarpment behind you, elephants, hippos, everything's happening.
You're making me homesick,
Water's critical. You've got to go to somewhere where there's water. The Okavango Delta during the floods, or even during the green season, is just probably the best wilderness experience you can have anywhere. Just in terms of the lowest numbers of people and this incredible expanse, and it's a beautiful place. So I'm on to 3 now. I've got to think of a couple more.
Well, we can email you that one, and we can pass them on to the viewers. So
exactly.
It's to say, coming to a theatre near you, so to speak. But
sure. I mean, we all know.
Things like the migration. Obviously,
we all know those places that people have seen that. But I mean, for me, the migration, you want to see that once. You want to see those animals crossing rivers. But COVID times is a good time to go to these places if you can, if you're brave enough to go. And there's no reason why you're not. You're in a vehicle, and it's there's open air around you, and it's fantastic. So I would say, get your jabs and do the trip and go to these places now, for sure. Crossings of the Masai Mara, August, coming up for it now. But I mean, Charlie, I love photographing flowers and landscapes, and South Africa's got so much too. And if you're looking for a one country place to just not cross borders right now, South Africa's got to be right up there with the Kruger National Park and the Sabi Sands, which is just terrific.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Yeah.
You know, and I've always said the best camera is the one in your hand.
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
anyway, folks, I hope that helps. Just a little bit of insight on the photographic side. Obviously, you got any queries or whatever, we're all here to help. And just get out there and enjoy it.